service tonight. We recognize it's going to be a little different service. I need tonight to take this time we have together, and very thankful our young people are with us, and there's some watching online, but I need to give you a serious update about our pastor's health and some things we just found out. And so I need you to listen really good tonight. I really do. And let Brother Dan kind of walk us through some things. And there's not a reason to be overly alarmed. I will tell you that ahead of time, because I know anxiety can kind of get to you before the message can, and we don't want to do that. So you just listen really well. And with regards to this, many of you know that at the beginning of this year, Pastor began to experience some medical issues that we thought were just related to his kidneys. Didn't suspect anything major or anything like that. And so we went to the doctor, and, his local medical doctor, family doctor, and they checked things out, and you don't have an infection and all this kind of stuff. And so thus began the medical trail. And one appointment to another. And so finally they would recommend pastor to a urologist. Now this is a very important point in the story. From the time Mrs. Smith called in January to get an appointment, she called in January, mid-January, I believe, if I remember correctly. It wasn't till March that was the first opening. And the reason that I bring that up is because sometimes when you're giving updates on health and stuff, people go, well, wow, he's been dealing with something since the beginning of the year, and why am I just now hearing about it? Because we're just now hearing about it. These things take a long time sometimes. So pastor went, saw the urologist, and kind of some different things along the way, which brings us to recently. On June the 13th, pastor went in for an MRI to get a better look at a few things. And what came back from that MRI, which is what I'm letting you know about, was the MRI revealed a nodule, what they're calling a nodule on his prostate. And the results have been labeled PI or PI-RADS 5. Now, for the rest of us who don't speak medical ease, what that means is it's been rated as highly likely to be cancerous. So let me repeat this part and be very, very clear about it. There is a nodule that the MRI found on pastor's prostate that they have deemed highly likely to be cancerous. From there, he met with his doctor right before he left for Central America. And he said, we're going to set you up. So they've scheduled a needle biopsy for August the 8th. Now, it's our prayer that we can get pastor in a little sooner if it be the Lord's will. Otherwise, we'll wait for August 8th. And I don't know about you, I am not a good waiter. Right? I want answers yesterday, but that's not how the medical field works. And honestly, a lot of times that's not how God works. And so we do not know, and this is really, really important, and I want to be super clear because I want you to be clear on this. We do not currently know if this is cancerous. We know that it is highly likely, and a needle biopsy on August the 8th is what's going to hopefully give us that answer, which is also going to tell us what these next potential steps are going to look like moving forward. And I would also mention to the church family that this process for our family has been very confusing. And along with that, there's what we feel is some very good news and some good things to look at. The first thing is that the MRI did find this nodule, but also it revealed that his bones, his bladder, and his lymph nodes are all clear. They all look good. So this seems to indicate that this potentially, if it is cancerous, that it's isolated. Also, it was surprising to us because his PSA numbers, he had his blood work done, his PSA numbers look really good. And so it was surprising to us when we found this out. There are a lot of little details kind of that follow this trail, but since this announcement is public, we just deem that there's just certain parts of pastor's medical things that he deserves some privacy on, even though his ministry is public. But I promise there's not any major things lurking that we're not telling you about. Now, I don't know if you realize this or not, but a lot of churches will not actually tell their church family the full medical story with regards to their pastor when something bad happens. And there's reasons for that. And they'll counsel you. Honestly, they would counsel our family. Hey, make sure you don't mention too much to the church family. Don't mention too early. And I'll give you a couple reasons, well-known reasons why that is. One, when you mention that there's some kind of medical issue with the pastor and his family begin to get bombarded with everybody and their cat's medical remedies for everything, right? There's this eucalyptus oil that you can rub behind your ear and that'll fix it, right? My brother says that he rubbed peanut butter on his forehead and wore a tinfoil hat and he was cured and all this stuff. If you, we're not in any way, shape, or form in charge of how anyone else runs their health. I think things should be done decently and in order and biblically as much as possible and prayerfully, of course. But that's not the road we follow. We don't feel like doctors are the enemy. We do have some gripes about the medical system, maybe how slow it churns sometimes, and we don't get the answers we were looking for, and we have that. But this is still the path we believe that is best for pastor, for our church family, moving forward. And just so people will say, hey, listen, don't tell people. Because if you tell people, if you make something like this public, you're going to get bombarded with stuff. We're not afraid of that. And because Pastor and Mrs. Smith, for 29 years now, have not just had a church family, but you and I both know they make us family. And because of that, they have chosen to let us into a private area of their life, and they're not trying to push us away. And the information that we have, you say, well, there's other questions. We have a lot of questions as well, but we're just like you. We have to wait. And I'm going to tell you this, when we get the answers, good or bad, we're going to tell you too. We're going to go through this together as a church family. So please don't start feeling like, well, it's been 6 months. I mean, what's going on? Nobody's said anything, because we didn't have anything to say pointedly. You know, it just seemed like simple tests that you and I would have about other things, whether it be kidney stones or whatever else. And we're just walking down that path. And now this is the first kind of, if you will, major news that we've received. And so we wanted to make mention of that. And let me say this too, that we don't know what this is specifically. And I know that any time, especially for our church family, anytime you use the word cancer, it's scary. It's a scary word. But also, would you please consider that prostate cancer is of all kinds by far the most treatable and the most survivable. I was talking to Pastor Ray today, and he just began to list, and Dr. Pope on Monday, they began to list pastor after pastor after pastor after pastor who's had this, faced it, and is currently alive and doing well. They're just fine. And now, if the Lord decides something we didn't see, then let that be the Lord's will, and let the Lord's will be done. Okay? But also, let's not be overly alarmed about something we don't need to be overly alarmed about as a church family, okay? That's super important, because of all things, as a family, we're going to continue, as we always have, to be led by faith and not by fear. And as I was praying about these things, my mind was drawn back to a passage in the book of Proverbs, Proverbs 24:10. And the Bible says, if thou faint in the day of adversity, thy strength is small. And I just want to tell you, I pray that as we go through things in life, whether it be individually or corporately as a church family, that what we would find is that the strength that we've always believed that we practice and have in Christ is indeed the same exact strength we have when bad news shows up or something that's potentially scary or unknown or whatever else. And just, I also want to ask for patience. As you and I both know, the medical trail is long and slow, and it's just going to take time to get the information. You say, well, Brother Dan, this is our pastor, and they need to act faster. I agree with you. I'm not going to argue with that. but we approach it prayerfully, and we'll do the very best we can. You say, Brother Dan, August 8th seems so far away. I mean, it's only July 5th. Can't we make it sooner? We're trying to. Well, Pastor just went to Peru. Should he be traveling in this state? Yes. Yes, that's why he went to his doctor before he left. He's not trying to be reckless or anything like that. The doctor said, there's no problem with that. You go ahead and travel and be used of God, no problem. And he is, so keep praying for that, by the way. I also want to make mention that please be sensitive to the fact this is hard on your pastor. Now, but maybe not for the reasons you think it's hard on him. I was there with Pastor and my wife, and of course Mrs. Smith, when my wife and Mrs. Smith had reviewed the MRI results, and we were there to, break the news to Pastor and share it with Pastor. I want to tell you this, and I walked through everything that I understood. I want to tell you this. Pastor was making dinner and didn't even stop making dinner as we told him. This was anything but shocking to him or disturbing. But I will tell you what's very hard on him. As a pastor, he's given 29 years of his life to this ministry and the members thereof, and it's very, very, very difficult for him to allow things to be about him. This ministry has never been about him. This missions trip, though it's central to it, it's not about him. And so for everybody to all of a sudden turn their attention to him and his health, that's hard on preacher. And so I just ask you, he is aware of the situation. He knows that we're going to be mentioning it tonight in services. He knows you're going to be praying. He knows that. So I'm just going to ask you this. Please don't take the time to interrupt his missions trip to bring it up to him. Now, Brother Dan, are you saying we can't contact the preacher? I never said that. If you have an update for your family, you have a prayer request, you have something you would normally communicate with your pastor, then do it. Don't let this change anything. But, please don't blow up his phone. Tell him you're praying for him, because he's going to feel like his health has distracted God's people, and that will hurt him. That will bother him. And I really want to ask that you wouldn't. Now, you say, Brother Dan, I got some questions. Brother Dan is here. Call me, text me. You found the magic mushroom that's going to fix everything, and some mushrooms will make you think they fix everything. We should avoid those biblically. But you have a question, you come see Brother Dan. Again, we're not trying to exclude anybody, but I'm telling you that this would be hard on your preacher if he shows back up in a few weeks and you hug his neck like that's the last time you'll ever get to see him. It's going to be hard on him, because he's going to feel like all of this is distracting God's people. I'm telling you what Pastor wants us thinking about, this C building. And I don't say that facetiously or sarcastically. That's on his heart and mind. Central America, Honduras Conference, that's on his heart and mind. And if he feels like all of us have stopped doing what we do every week to serve God and to move this ministry forward, it's going to hurt him. And if anything, it's going to make him feel like, and he won't, but it's going to make him feel like I should have never brought it up in the first place. And we don't want to do that to preacher. We don't want to do that to preacher, and there's no need to. We're going to follow God just as Pastor continues to follow God and move forward. So I just want to make mention of that. And the other thing is that I also don't want to make it sound like, if this is disturbing news to you, that somehow your faith has failed you, and you don't really love or trust God. I'm not trying to make it sound like that. This is going to be difficult for many in our church family. It's already been stirring to the family. Praise the Lord, we've had a few weeks to kind of digest and process things a bit. But here's the reality. Our pastor, God has blessed this man with incredible health, right? And energy and stamina. He goes at a pace. I tell the Lord all the time, dear Lord, please don't expect me to work like that man works. I mean, I'm doing my best here, and with Pastor, if you've been here a long, long time, then you're going to remember when Pastor was on a family vacation in Canada, hurt his ankle, right? If you've been here a long time, you're going to know about when Pastor fell off a ladder and broke his arm. Remember that? Okay. And if you maybe even haven't even been here that long, some of you would even remember Pastor's back issues and the back surgery he had. But you know, when it comes to this type of internal issues, other than broken bones and stuff, we've never even had an announcement before. And so it's like when young people finally have to face the fact that mom and dad aren't going to live forever, right? And that's hard for our church family because, you know, it's my plan and it's your plan that we're all going to live until we see Jesus in the rapture, right? And anybody who wants to talk about something different, we don't want to hear it. I mean, to be honest, in our hearts, that's where we are because we love each other, because we're family. And so I don't want you to feel like that if you go home and you feel sad or, you know, something like that, that somehow you don't have any faith and all this. I'm not trying to say that. But what I'm saying is please don't let this shake you when it shouldn't, right? When it shouldn't. And you know us. You know me. You know our pastor. You know Mrs. Smith. If it was something else, if you should be concerned, we would tell you. But it's just not that. And we just want to be clear about these things. And let me take a minute, if I could. I know this is definitely a different Wednesday night service, and I don't plan to have a lot of them like this, by the way. Let me talk about where we go from here, because that's kind of some of the things. And one of the things that I want to make mention of is I know that recently Brother Andy started teaching pastors. He's got a 12-week series. He's teaching a pastor's Sunday school, adult Sunday school class. And you've seen Brother Dan. Now, I've been preaching Wednesday night for a long time, but now I'm preaching Sundays more and these types of things. Please do not think any of that is related to or a result of pastor's medical things. It is not. This is something pastor and the staff have been planning for some time. He's wanted Andy in the adult Bible auditorium Bible class, the Sunday school Bible class. He's wanted that for some time now, and he's been talking to Brother Andy for some time. He's been talking to Brother Andy for some time, and he's been preparing for some time. He wants to continue. Pastor has a burden to continue to grow and develop, just like Brother Pline had mentioned at the FBBI graduation, the next generation. It's hard to have great preachers and teachers when you never give them a chance, right? And I'm sure there's somebody here who feels like you deserve more of a chance. We'll help you out there. And then with this, with regards to the time that I'm having opportunity to preach more through the month of July, that's specifically related to Pastor's trip to Central America. Coming up on a major trip like that, Pastor has learned through years of experience that if he just books his schedule super tight right up to the time he leaves, he's distracted while he's there. And he didn't want that. He wanted time to pray and to prepare so that he would be 100% going into this trip. And I'll tell you this, for him, these medical issues have not distracted him at all. You know, Pastor. Not at all. And so we shouldn't allow that either. Continue to pray and focus. And that's part of the reason the service was structured the way it was tonight. If I had mentioned this in prayer, during our prayer time, it would have distracted from the other prayer requests. Pastor would have hated that, right? If I mentioned this earlier in the service, we don't talk about what's going on in Honduras, and we've got the lanes and all the stuff they're doing at the compound there. And I'm going to tell you these two. Brother Tate's been doing an immense amount of work. This entire itinerary in Central America for Pastor, Brother Tate organized himself. Every stop, every hotel, every meal, the budget, and on top of all of that, Brother Tate is with Pastor, personally escorting him through the whole thing and translating for him every time. If Brother Tate, when we hear this, Brother Tate was not with him, I doubt Pastor would have gone. But because Pastor is surrounded by such capable people, he believes this is the door God has opened. And so you pray not only for the lanes and the conference center there, but you pray for Brother Tate and, of course, the Tate family and everything that God's doing there. God's working these families together in such a powerful way, and that's so important. Does this change any of our plans moving forward? No. No, there's nothing to change. And I hope you can see that. We still have the same schedule. Everything is just as planned. If something in the future changes it, we'll let you know, but we don't have plans. We're not trying to make plans. The deacons, I spoke with the deacons on Monday night, feel the exact same way. We're just moving forward. we're thankful. And one of the things that we've kind of are wondering about specifically as a family is if God didn't allow these other random issues to bring about, see, if there wasn't this other kidney thing or whatever, we don't know what it is currently, he never would have had an MRI, right? We never would have found this. Pastor's not experiencing some kind of discomfort or pain or anything when there's prostate or any of these other areas. And so if it wasn't for the kidneys, we wouldn't know anything about this. And so we're really feeling like the Lord allowed this to draw our attention to something we would have never even known about. And that's how we feel, and as we look towards and knowing God is in control. And let me say this, and these are some things not only from my heart and pastors, but I want to say this is from Dr. Gibbs as well. Not that he has more authority than God or anything like that, but you know Dr. Gibbs is a friend of our church family and a pastor in the family. And he just reminded us, and I'd already been kind of feeling this, that number one, we're to give thanks. We're to give thanks. And you know, 1 Thessalonians 5:18 reminds us that in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God. And I want to tell you this, as a church family, we need to, in our private prayer, we need to thank God for this. Because God has a plan for it. God has a purpose. As we thank God, it turns our focus back to Him and what He's doing. And if any damage can really occur from this, it's distracting us from God and His leading. And that's so important that we give thanks and carry the right spirit. And the other thing I would say this too, it's important as we move forward that we're clear where we're getting information and who should be giving information. And I'm going to tell you why I think that's important. Because there are still so many questions that we want answered as a family and things we're confused about that we have not been given answers to, that for you to try to come or someone else and represent what's happening to other people, that's dangerous. How many have ever been given bad medical information about another person? Would you please raise your hand? And every hand in here should be raised up. So-and-so has got this horrible disease. He died last week. No, he just went home with antibiotics. What? I've had my personal family has been in the hospital. I've warned others, hey, it's going to be confusing. Anybody else have family members like that? Don't know how to give a medical update. And one of the things that we want to be careful about is confusion. And if you have questions, you call Brother Dan. And if we have updates, we're going to give them to you. But we're not going to, just to make clear, we are going to post this update on the church website, on the YouTube channel. But outside of that, we're not going to do a bunch of social media updates and all this other kind of stuff. We're not going to do that because we just want simple, clear sources of information. And that's super important moving forward. So please be careful about any updates you would give or things passing on. One of our big concerns is people start saying, oh, did you hear Pastor Smith has cancer? That's not an accurate update. We don't know that. It is highly likely, but if it is, we haven't confirmed that. What kind? There's so much we don't know, and we will know. We will know. Lord willing, we'll move forward and get that information. The last thing let me say is this. I believe the most important thing we can possibly do is simply be Faith Baptist Church. Be Faith Baptist Church. Have the faith that helped see us through Rachel Rudd's cancer. Have that same faith. Have the same faith that we had that led us through Miss Lee Prouty's cancer. Have the same exact faith that led it through Miss Elena's trial of health. That same passion and caring and concern one for another and the same faith. That's what we need to do. We just need to be, and not to sound arrogant, we just need to be the people we already are. We don't need to change anything. Have the same faith, pray to the same God, and keep moving forward. Okay? I hope that's clear. I really do. And you say, Brother Dan, I don't like news like that. I don't either. I promise I did not enjoy hearing it. But since then, since I've had time to pray and digest, man, the Lord has just shown that He's in this, and He has a plan, and He has a purpose, and we're still trusting Him as we always have, and I'm so thankful for that. If you want to come by and talk to Ms. Smith, you're welcome to that, all these things. And if I've left something out and you have a piece of information you want, I'll do my best to get it to you. I don't have any problem with that. We're not trying to hold people back and keep that's not our spirit. That's not our plan at all. But also, I want to say, I'm going to challenge us. Please don't get distracted. If anything actually would hurt our pastor, it's that we got distracted. And we don't want to do that. We want to keep marching forward. Well, I know it's a little different service tonight, but honestly, after news like this, I think anything else we say, you're going to be a little distracted in the pew. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to pray together, and you're going to continue to pray as we move forward. And if you need to talk to us, any of the family or whoever, things you need to do, you're welcome to do that. But let's pray together.